Good evening, everyone. Thanks for clicking on the latest Higher Summits forecast discussion. My name, of course, is Francis Tarasiewicz. I'm a meteorologist up here on the summit of Mount Washington, coming to you live tonight, of course, from the summit of Mount Washington. And I want to start today off with some of the cool clouds we've had, but also want to start off with just talking a little bit about my attire today. Notice that I'm wearing a hat and a couple of layers, and that's because it's just been really cold up here on the summits, and probably not a whole lot of meteorologists who can say they're wearing a hat in early June or late May. So without further ado, let's get started here. We'll take a look at a time-lapse fellow weather observer and meteorologist Carl Filipoff took. Sometimes as meteorologists and weather observers up here, we set our phones on the windowsill. We just take a time-lapse and let it run. And so today was one of those cool days. And so yeah, this is the view we had looking northward towards the northern presidentials. There's Jefferson and Clay there in the foreground. But above them, you'll notice two layers of clouds doing sort of two different things, right? You have this lower layer of cumulus clouds. These are flowing more north from the northwest to the southeast. But above them, you can see these sort of almond or lens-shaped clouds. These are a bunch of lenticulars, those mountain waves that I've talked about in the past developing. That's as flow is going up and over the terrain. It's relatively cool and moist air. And yeah, you can see the clouds developing along the areas where the flow is going upwards and condensing a little bit, and then drying out on the leeward side of the mountains. So incredible sign of turbulence, and yeah, just another cool cloud day up here on the summit that I thought I'd love to share with you all. Of course, this is found on our social media. If you want to learn a bit more about mountain waves, you can always find out a bit more on our social media. Today, though, the big story has been, of course, the cold and the wind. We actually have a wind chill advisory in effect, which will go through in the early part of tomorrow morning through about 10 a.m. or so, and that's because of what's going on behind me here. You can see winds are quite busy from the west/northwest, around 53 miles per hour. They topped out really close to 70 miles per hour, right around 69 miles per hour or so. And the big story, again, has been the wind chills. They've improved a little bit, but we're right around 28 degrees. So if you're dressed here unprepared for these winter-like conditions, you could find yourself into a really bad situation with exposure risks as well. Taking a look at those temperatures now, the vertical temperature profile going up the Mount Washington Auto Road. You can see the Mount Washington Observatory. We finally cracked the 40-degree mark or so. We've been in the upper 30s for most of the day. Actually started off the day near freezing, and so we've made some improvement. And really the word of the upcoming weekend will be improving temperatures. But again, we have to go through tonight and early Saturday with the cold and continued winds. We'll take a little bit of a zoom out here with the visible satellite looking at New England. We can see the two levels of clouds that I discussed in that previous time lapse. We've got the low-level cumulus clouds, sort of popcorn-looking clouds. Those fire up as a result of some daytime heating on the ground, rising in little thermals, and then forming and condensing into tiny clouds. And then above them, you can see these sort of flatter clouds. Those are those upper-level lenticular clouds, moisture flowing up and over the summits, being traced by the topography up here of northern New England. Again, if you're a pilot, those are bad news, and you typically want to avoid areas where there's a lot of turbulence and mountain waves. So we'll take a look going forward now at the weekend. Not a whole lot to talk about going forward, but of course we do have those cold conditions tonight and tomorrow. But in terms of precipitation, I'll quickly go through this forecasted radar here, starting the clock again this afternoon, right as we start the broadcast. A couple of spot showers over Maine. There's a very weak upper level disturbance moving offshore and away from the area overnight. But of course, underneath it, there's been a few spotty showers that have been able to develop as we've made our way through the afternoon. But those will wind down in coverage as we head into the overnight. And I'll just keep kind of going here Saturday, Sunday, and I'll step to the side of the screen here. And then later Sunday, we've got some shower or thunderstorm activity, but that is expected to remain well to the south, but may spread a few high clouds into the area going into Sunday afternoon and evening. Could be a few severe thunderstorms possible, especially in the southern areas of the Mid-Atlantic. Of course, up here on the higher summits, really not a whole lot to talk about precipitation-wise going forward. Temperatures, as I mentioned, they're going to start fairly well below average, not quite freezing overnight, but we'll see those temperatures get pretty close. We'll see a cooling trend. Again, overnight we've got really a cold air mass with northerly winds draining down from some colder air from Canada. And then we've got a ridge of high pressure building in from the west, and that's going to bring some warming temperatures, improving conditions as well as we get into the day on Saturday. But we'll start the morning off with those brisk northerly winds. Wind chills falling into the 20s and 30s or so above zero. So again, quite cold and exposure risks for those unprepared for winter-like hiking conditions up here in the White Mountains. But the second half of Saturday, we'll actually see milder air begin to push in. This is now midday Saturday. You can see much warmer conditions there across portions of New York State and the Great Lakes. Continuing to move in, this is Saturday night now into Sunday, and Sunday will probably be the pick of the weekend in terms of weather. Of course, it'll be mostly clear. We'll have some upper level clouds streaming in from those storms to the south, but temperatures will be on the increase, expecting them to reach the upper 40s with lighter winds as well, decreasing winds. And we'll go through the day Sunday. Again, a mild day, slightly above average for this time of year by the time we get to Sunday. Moving along to the wind forecast, showing our streamlines. We'll actually zoom the clock back a little bit further. So we've got strong winds we're dealing with right now, the west and northwesterly winds as that area of low pressure pulls away from to the east, and we've got the high pressure building in from the west. In between, of course, we're in that squeeze play, right? So we've got a pressure gradient and strong winds. We're expecting elevated winds through the overnight. They may even ramp up somewhat around sunset before shifting direction, gradually decreasing. We've got a ridge kind of falling apart or falling right on top of us, so our winds will shift more out of the north. And again, it'll be another cold night with these northerly winds drawing in much cooler air. Northerly winds will continue into Saturday, but you can see by the afternoon they'll start to decrease, and we'll see again a moderation in those wind chill valleys. It'll still be cold, right? 45 degrees on bare skin isn't very pleasant, so you'll still want to bundle up and prepare for cooler conditions than we might expect in the valleys up here on the summit. But again, not quite as dangerous or life-threatening as what we're seeing right now for those unprepared. We'll see winds continue to decrease and shift a little bit more northwesterly going into Saturday night. You can see this area of sort of lower winds. That's the center of the ridge axis, the high pressure that I talked about. It's going to continue to bring clear skies overnight Saturday into Sunday. And by the time we get to Sunday, we'll see that ridge mainly move overhead with an area of low pressure, a weakening area of low pressure, I should say, across portions of the mid-Atlantic, Pennsylvania. But again, that's going to be very far south and not really affect our weather picture outside of a few high clouds. And so we'll break down the daily details now, the higher summit forecast. Of course, you can find this at mountwashington.org/forecast for any the higher summits forecast. We, of course, update this twice daily, once at 4 in the morning and then once around 4 p.m. or so. And the forecast does go out for about 48 hours. And so without further ado, let's get into these daily details for tonight. We'll be in the clear under partly cloudy skies. Temperatures will fall back in the mid-30s. Again, quite cold for this time of year. And winds will be from the northwest, shifting north. 35 to 50 miles per hour early in the day, gusts up to 60 miles per hour, eventually decreasing to 15 to 30, mainly after midnight or so. Wind chill valleys will fall to between 15 and 25 above as a result. Moving on to Saturday, we'll be in the clear with mostly sunny skies. Temperatures will rise to around 50 or so. We'll see winds from the northwest at 20 to 35, eventually decreasing to 15 to 30 miles per hour, and wind chill valleys will stay cold, 15 to 25 or so above zero. That's why we have that wind chill advisory, I should say, until 10 a.m. But again, we'll see improvement by the afternoon. For Saturday night, we'll be in the clear under partly cloudy skies. Temperatures will settle back down to the lower 40s, so quite chilly, but not as chilly as it's been in the last few days. Winds will be from the north, shifting northwesterly again as that high pressure starts to build in, 10 to 25 miles per hour. And those wind chill valleys will fall to between 25 and 35 above zero tomorrow night. And then finally for the day on Sunday, we'll be in the clear with mostly cloudy skies. High temperatures will rise back up into the lower 50s, maybe not quite half bad day up here on these summits. And so winds will be from the north, shifting west at 10 to 25 miles per hour. And with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in to this week's edition to the Higher Summits Forecast. And again, as I mentioned, mountwashington.org/forecast. You can find a forecast at any time. And with that, I wish you all a happy, healthy, and safe weekend. Thank you again.